Hey guys, what's going on? It's Al. It's Friday. That means that I'm spending some time the next hour or so taking questions from my subscribers on Twitch. And we're going to talk about week 4 in the NFL on DraftKings, taking your questions of things that you have to ask, right? Strategy questions, tournament questions. Is this player cash game viable? This two versus this two. What decisions should we make this weekend? I am not here to give out lineups. I'm here to help you make the best decisions that you can make in daily fantasy sports so that you can become a profitable player or become a more profitable player in time. The only way to do that is to surround yourself with like-minded people. So if you subscribe to Twitch, to my channel on Twitch, twitch.tv/Al_Smizzle. The link is in the comment section in the description down below. You get access to my Discord channel where we have a subs-only channel where I pop in every once in a while, and everybody is just talking about DraftKings all week long, strategy, salaries, bouncing ideas off one another. So if you want to get better, that's the place that you need to be. If you like this content, I would love it if you drop a like on this video, subscribe to this channel, hit the notifications bell, and know anytime that I post new content, which is pretty constant throughout the NFL season right here on YouTube. So let's get to the chat and let's get to the questions. Doyle officially out. Yep, that makes Ebron a thing. 3 Bengals in cash viable. Dalton, Gio, and Boyd or Eifert. Gio seems like a lock. Gio to me is kind of a lock. Dalton I think is fine. Boyd also fine. There's a lot of players at wide receiver in that range from like 4,000 to 5,500 that are in play. Eifert, not as interested on DK, but I'm interested in him, but not like overly interested. I think he's way too cheap on FD. Chris Carson, cash game viable. I don't think that he is the optimal route to go in cash. I think that the way that most people are going to go is spend up at running back this week at all 3 spots, right? Team Jam 'em in is in full effect at running back this week, and then there's plenty of value wide receivers to go after as well. Ridley or Boyd in cash? I prefer Boyd. I think that Ridley saw his peak week last week, and people are going to chase the points and chase the hot new thing on the market right now, when in reality he was facing off against the worst cornerback in terms of PFF's tracking statistics throughout the year in Ken Crawley. He's not facing that this week, so is he still a good player? Yes. Is he as great at daily fantasy play? No, mostly because of the matchup and his role in the offense. GamerDoc, thank you for the Twitch Prime sub. Who am I interested in most at the 40 to 5,500 wide receiver range? Well, why don't we just go take a look? Right? If you have not read Best Buys yet and you're an ESPN Plus subscriber, go to ESPN Plus, go to ESPN, click the little search button, and then type Zeidenfeld, my last name. It's right there on top of the YouTube channel. And then you'll come up with my article for this week where I detail the guys that I like most at this position in greater detail than I can go into now because I got to get to a lot of different questions. So let's start at 5,500. Baldwin looks like he's going to play this week against Arizona against the non-shadowing Patrick Peterson. If he plays in this game, I think that we have to consider him at 5,500, although I don't know how much I want to consider him or how much allocation I'm going to put on him for Sunday. He's somebody that now is on my radar as he's playing because Wilson and him obviously have a great connection, and he's not going to get shadowed by Patrick, who's just playing one side. Keelan Cole, no. Corey Davis, intriguing but not thrilled, especially with the quarterback situation right now in Tennessee with Blaine Gabbert concussed and out, and Mariota dealing with arm injuries, elbow, wrist, everything else. Marvin Jones Jr., not thrilled really. Tyler Lockett, way less so with Baldwin out there. Calvin Ridley, I much prefer Shepard at the same price. Shepard, I think, is my most preferred wide receiver in this range right now. I think also with Ellison, if Cobb is out, and right now he's listed as questionable after Friday practice, his status is up in the air. Be sure to tune in to Twitch on Sunday morning for the Anti-Tinkercast. The last 45 minutes before NFL kicks off, I will answer all the questions that there is, and we'll have much more clarity for everything in terms of, it's after inactive. So we have all the answers. We know what's going to happen in terms of who's playing and who's not, and there's less guesswork involved. You just kind of know where the snaps are going to go. Ellison right now is in a holding pattern for me. Not thrilled with his volume with everybody there, but you take one wide receiver out, that opens up a lot of targets. Tyler Boyd also in play for me. Godwin has been absolutely outstanding so far. 10 targets, 6 targets, 4 targets. We have to see who's starting at quarterback this week for them. Quincy Enunwa runs the type of routes that are not going to be able to be taken away by the Jacksonville defense. I like him a lot at 4,300. Taylor should see extended snaps, maybe some more targets with Rashard Matthews now completely off this team. To me, he's nothing more than a tournament dart throw. I don't even mean a tournament flyer or a sprinkle. It's just he needs to catch a 60-yard touchdown to be effective. That's completely within his locker and his style of play. Whether or not the quarterbacks can get him the ball to be able to pull that off, I don't know. And then Callaway at 4,300, I glossed over him, unfortunately, and not intentionally. Also one of my favorite plays this week with Baker Mayfield against Oakland, who gives up a ton of deep balls. Callaway, that's his main threat. Should see a lot of targets, maybe not as many as 11, but probably more than 4. 7 or 8 targets seems fine for me at 4,300 with the upside he brings with Baker Mayfield now at the helm. Titans O-line is all healthy now. I agree. I think that helps the running backs more than it helps, more than it helps the quarterback with the problems they're having right now. If the quarterbacks were healthy, I think that would be amazing, but the quarterbacks just aren't healthy right now. Gronk in the flex with Ebron and Cash. I think that Gronk in the flex is fine. If you were going to go with a wide receiver, I think that's more of a tournament lineup. I don't think that's a cash game look because Gronk's volume is in flux from one week to the next when you can probably get a 25 touch projected running back into your flex this week. So I will take the 25 touch guy over the 8 target guy, especially for cash. Tournaments, again, different story for tournaments. Indy gets pressure. Does this scare you with Watson? Not really. I mean, he gets sacked. He's going to throw interceptions from time to time. His upside is what he can do with his legs and his ability with the deep ball, and I think they have a massive advantage there. S. Boynton, thank you for the 200 bits. Zeke, MG3, or Barkley as an RB2 in cash. I wrote up Barkley, and I was kind of in a coin toss situation with him and Zeke. I love Barkley's volume. I'm a little bit worried now on Friday after I wrote the article on Wednesday, putting Barkley over Zeke. I've got them neck and neck. I might prefer Zeke. He's a little bit cheaper, has a softer road to go against than the Saints. Teams have been throwing against the Saints a ton because of Crawley on the other side. Another slot cornerback's gone. And that looks to be the route that the Giants are going to look to go, but he's going to get massive volume, and so is Zeke. Him and Zeke are the 2 most voluminous running backs in the league right now. I don't think you can go wrong with either one. Do I prefer Ryan and Hooper or Dalton and Ebron in cash? I think Ryan to Dalton is about even. I think that Ebron is greater than Hooper, so give me the Dalton-Ebron grouping. Charger wide receivers in cash? I haven't really thought about them in cash, to be honest with you. I mean, Allen is a little bit dinged up. We're going to have to see how healthy he is by the weekend. He's got a couple of injuries that he's dealing with. He's got a tooth. He's dealing with a tooth. Yes, I did just drop voluminous. I can't even pronounce it now. Are we fading Kamara again this week? Nope, never doing that. Jones is a cash viable option. No, not for me this week. Last week was the spot that I wanted to go after him. To me, it's an opportunity cost thing. If you're paying up at wide receiver, you're sacrificing one running back. I don't think I want to sacrifice a running back in cash this week. Jerry Jones said the Cowboys offense can be as good as the Rams. I think he said he sees a lot of similarities in their offense. And other than the fact that they have 11 players suit up wide receivers, running backs, offensive line, and quarterback with possibly a tight end from time to time, I don't see any other similarities. That's me. Would you consider DJ in cash as your last spot to fill in flex? Probably not. I don't know that I can rely on David Johnson to get the volume, and it's not David's fault, right? Ain't his fault. It's just the running backs around him. Sony Michel at 4,500 seems somewhat interesting. I know people want to play Carson after his volume explosion last week. 12 touches, 6 touches, and then 34 touches. Which one you think is coming back? You think they're coming back with 30-plus touches again for Carson? Or do you think that they're coming back with closer? Like, what's it going to be closer to, chat? I'll leave that to you, okay? Is he going to get closer to 34, or is he going to get closer to 10? Right? So the over-under, that makes the over-under what, 21? So over-under 21 touches for Chris Carson in week 4. It's a tough over bet. It's really a tough over bet. Really hard to bet over 21 for me. Kerryon Johnson as well, 4,400 against Dallas, whose hemorrhage points I think is fine. Is Coleman at 5,900 cash viable on DK? I think so. You have Breida, who I think is going to catch a ton of balls. I'm not going to do it right here on this stream, but go back when you get a chance. Go do a Google search for Carlos Hyde game logs. Click on one of the links, go back to 2017, and look at what happened when Beathard was the quarterback for San Francisco, and look at how many catches Carlos Hyde and how many targets Carlos Hyde was getting in this same exact offense with this same exact quarterback and the same exact play caller. And the only thing that's changed is that Carlos Hyde isn't there, and now Matt Breida and Alf Morris are. Alf Morris will not catch passes. Okay? It's against his religion. He's not allowed to catch them. Okay? So he just won't do that. So if Matt Breida starts getting 7-8 targets a week, that totally changes his value at 5,800. Right? Like, he's priced in at 3-4 targets. If he starts getting double that in full PPR, becomes very viable to me. Carlos Hyde at 5,500 I think is a good value. James White, probably the most reliable so far of the New England backs, but not very much upside unless he breaks his way into the end zone a couple of times, which he's done twice, but really is only, hasn't gotten over 16 fantasy points through 3 weeks with scoring 2 touchdowns. Not enough volume for me to want to bank on James White, especially not at 5,400. Shanahan loves throwing the running back in Trey set throughout his career. I agree. He loves doing it more when he has a quarterback that can't throw outside the hashes, too. 13th anniversary.
13th anniversary? Can you compare floor ceiling of Watson versus Dalton?
Dalton doesn't have the ceiling that Watson has, essentially. I think they both have a similar floor. We've seen Watson's floor is about what he did week 1 against New England, right? Against a defense that is geared up to stop him. And he had 13 fantasy points. So any quarterback's got that sort of floor, right? His ceiling, especially against Indy, is massive. 25 to 35 fantasy points is his ceiling. Now, Dalton can work up to there, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be easier, though, for him to access the ceiling this week than other weeks without a pounding running back, right? So he's going to have to throw. So I think he's got a tremendous floor, Dalton does, based on the fact that he's got Eifert and that he's got Gio Bernard to throw the ball to inside. So that's what, 15 completions between the two of them in between the hashes. He's got Boyd on the outside, who's a weapon. He's got Ross to keep the safeties off the line of scrimmage and to create more space, the injured safeties for the Falcons. And then he's still got AJ Green on the other side. So I think Dalton's got a tremendous floor, but not the ceiling of Watson. He's got a good ceiling, but Watson is a different animal. Thoughts on Landry and Hyde? Will be under-owned this week for their market share. 41 opportunity. Yeah, I agree. I've said that all week about Hyde. I think that Hyde is going to be one of the better value running backs for GPP because people are just ignoring the fact that he got as much usage as he's gotten. And maybe you'll see it a little bit after, people chasing the touchdowns from last week, which I hate it when people chase touchdowns. I just think that this is a perfect situation for Carlos Hyde to get a ton of carries and more usage in the pass game in a first start for a rookie quarterback on the road, right? With conservative coaches that, they're going to take shots, but at the same time, they're also going to try and hand it off to take the pressure off Baker.
Thanks for all the great content, Smith. Let's G-O-O-O-O.
You suck, Mubot. God, Mubot, you suck. Chemistry Prof, you do not suck. Thank you very much for the 5 months of support using Twitch Prime. Let's G-O-O-O-O-O-O. Landry had 15 targets last week. He and Hyde are priced oddly compared to the popular plays. I agree. I think they're too cheap. I think that the Browns can get there on volume, and if they get into the end zone, they go bonkers. Miller is out, and I believe he's been getting volume and still sub 4K. I'm coming in on the backside of that conversation. You're talking about the Bears. The Bears wide receiver situation, I assume, and I'm kind of jumping into the middle of a conversation in my own chat. Anthony Miller is out, for those of you who want to get caught up there. So Anthony Miller out based on what happened today. He's getting some usage, 5 targets, right? So it's not like he's eating up a ton. I think it's like 11% of their market share of targets. Trubisky just doesn't throw a ton, right? 35, 34, 35. That's what they're doing. He has not been very effective at all. He has not been efficient. I think the guy that you can bank on getting targets is Allen Robinson. Right? He's going to get his share. He's going to get 7, 8, 9 targets. I think you can bank on the fact that Trey Burton is going to get the usage that he's got, and I think that he needs to get more. I think we need to see 7, 8, 9 targets go to Burton, but he's topped out at 6 through 3 weeks. So I need them to get the ball to him more. And then, Taylor Gabriel's getting supply, but am I really investing in Taylor Gabriel? 3,900 though. Kid's got big playability, but a long of 9 and a long of 10 in the last 2 weeks. My issue is not Gabriel or his game or his athletic ability. My issue is Mitchell Trubisky in that situation. Cookies 50-50. I love Cookies. Thank you very much for the 2. Am I eyeing any sub 3 TK tight ends for cash? Not really. But like we can look at it. Ashy Slashy says Gabriel's GPP only for me, and I would agree with that. I think there's enough value at wide receiver for cash that you don't really need to go there. Graham I like. I've said as much. Ebron, Njoku, I think are the 3 best tight ends for cash. I mean, Ricky Seals-Jones, if you think the rookie quarterback makes any difference in the amount of supply that he's gotten, right? 6 targets, but like nothing. Then last week he caught a 35-yard touchdown, but only on 3 targets. Really needs to beef up the amount of looks that he gets. I mean, shout out to the homie. Gesicki's too good to get 3 targets too. Like there's no volume down here, and there's no path to volume to me. You know, that's the issue. Thank you for the 100 bits again, D. Damon. Can I discuss MG3 versus Barkley? Yeah, I'm going back and forth on these high-end running backs. Let me touch on all of them. Okay, Alvin Kamara, he's good. Don't fade him. Don't fade Alvin Kamara. I'm trying to be very clear about this so that there are no mistakes on the Twitter machine this weekend, because I did not say to fade him. You should always play him. Always. Always. So we got that under control. Melvin Gordon III, I think, is really solid. Way too easy. Thank you for the 2 months. You guys know that I love volume. Melvin Gordon gets volume. And he's played against at the Rams, tough run defense, at Buffalo, on the road, early game, going west to east, all those sorts of things. Week 1 is the only week that he got the volume that he used to get, right? So he's a guy who typically sits between 22 and 28 touches. He has not gotten that the last 2 weeks. I think he returns to that against San Francisco at home. Favored running backs at home that are favored by greater than 7 points show that they, score X amount of points over expectation more often than not. So typically speaking, Melvin Gordon III is in for a very good workload against a team that cannot stop running backs for the past 3 years. So I really like Melvin Gordon III at his salary at 8,300. El Notorio Taco. I love tacos too. Guys, you guys are coming in with cookies and tacos, and I can't concentrate. All right, Saquon Barkley, second in the league in terms of dominating his team's touches, only behind Ezekiel Elliott. Absolutely love the volume that this kid is getting, and you know that he's going to get 5+ targets pretty much every single week, and especially against New Orleans, who is going to put points on the board, and so New York is going to have to keep up. He is second on this team in terms of targets. I think I have them pulled up. I do. Second on the team in targets, ahead of Shepard, ahead of Evan Ingram, who's out this week, so more targets to be spread around. And I don't think that Red Ellison or Cody Latimer or Wayne Gallman or anybody else on this team is going to get them. They're going to get split. That 14% of the market share, 10% of that is going to get split more between Odell, Barkley, and Shepard this week, with Evan Ingram expected out. And like the red zone usage has also been good, not through the air, but mostly through the ground, on the ground. They're just giving this kid the rock a ton. And you just, you have to like his volume. My issue is that Barkley going against New Orleans, who has not given up a ton of points through the first 3 weeks to running backs. They're one of the bottom 3 teams in terms of fantasy points allowed to the position. I'm probably going to side with Melvin Gordon III here. I'm okay with any one of these 3. If you want to just go with these 3 in tournaments, why'd you do that to me, DraftKings? Made me look bad. You want to go with these 3 in cash? I'm not going to argue with you. If you want to do that, I am not arguing with you. If you want to do this and you can get there, I'm not arguing with you. If you want to do that and come down into the cheaper range and do something like that, I'm not arguing with you. Why? Because volume, right? I just want 3 cats that can get me combined 70 touches out of my 3 running back spots. And this week I'm viewing the flex as a running back spot. Yeah, Gio as well. I could have gone with like 6 dudes there. I'm just saying you have to be able to project 70+ touches for your running backs this week. Because if you can't, you're going to get beat in cash. Is Kelvin still off the radar? Had a difficult schedule so far. Kelvin Benjamin, I'm not a fan. What's he done that I've missed? I mean, and it could be that, like, it could just be that I just ignore, you know, like this could be on me, that I just ignore the Bills. Played Minnesota, difficult. Played the Chargers, they got a good cornerbacks. Played Baltimore, good cornerbacks. Going up against Green Bay, a little bit weaker cornerbacks. Like, tournament sprinkle only. You know? Like, that's about it for me. Chat's going nuts that I didn't say Gio. Like, I love Gio this week, guys. You know that I love Gio this week. Like, you want to see that with Gio? Like, do we need to see that? There, him, MG3, Bernard. There, you saw it. Right? Like, just do it. Just slam. Like, I think he gets, 15 to 22 touches. I think Melvin Gordon gets 25. I think he gets somewhere between 18 and 25. I think you can add all this up and figure out where we're going. Right? You just need to get volume, and you got to get stuff in the pass game and goal line. And last week, Gio Bernard touched the ball. He had, not roughly, but exactly 100% of the running back touches for Cincinnati last week. Stop building my cash game lineup. Yeah, just sit. This is why during the opening of the show, when you guys kind of said, this week's difficult, it's kind of difficult. It seems pretty straightforward to me. And BPV nailed it. Just play all the dudes, right? You can fit them. It isn't hard. It's very easy to fit the dudes this week. Just play all the dudes. Play OBJ and GPPs. I agree with S. Boynton as well. Because we're all going to be on Shepard, so guess what? Everybody's going to be on Shepard, and everybody's going to be on the expensive running back. So what does that tell you? How can you be contrarian and still be in tournaments and still be within the realm of being right? You want to know how to be right? Boom, boom. You want to be contrarian and leverage all the Shepard and Kamara ownership? Go with Thomas and Beckham and then build a lineup. See if you can build one. I think you can. Is it going to look as pretty as the Zeke, Gio? You might still have Gio in there. Zeke, Kamara. Is it going to look as good as those lineups at Melvin Gordon III that have two of those three guys in there at running back? Might not. But you can still get like Carlos Hyde, Carson, Sony Michel. You can still get Gio. You can get Tevin Coleman, and then load up at wide receiver. Go with a cheap tight end in defense and a cheap quarterback. All of a sudden, you have a ridiculous lineup. Another route you can go in tournaments. Shep, Manning. Hell, you can go Barkley in there too. Those are the three pass catchers this week. If the chalk doesn't hit and you think it's hitting hard, this is if the chalk doesn't hit and you think it's hitting hard this week. I mean, touchdowns are extremely variant, right? Last year, we talked about how much Alvin Kamara was getting into the end zone versus the amount of volume that he was getting, right? And it was completely unsustainable. He was getting into the end zone way too often for the amount of volume he was getting. It was the same thing with Tevin Coleman a couple of years ago. He was getting like 35% of the volume on the team, but was scoring the most rushing touchdowns on the team, well over Freeman. And he was scoring from like 17 and 20 yards out. It was odd, right? So Kamara's efficiency last year on touches to turning touches into touchdowns was way too efficient. This year, he's getting all the touches, and he's like leading the league by far in red zone looks and inside the 10-yard line carries and catches, and he's not scoring touchdowns. So it normalizes. So sometimes those touchdowns have gone somewhere else. Those touchdowns have gone to Ted Ginn. Those touchdowns have gone to Michael Thomas, right? So those touchdowns have gone to Drew Brees. So sometimes those things over the larger sample size have a way of working themselves out. Ashy just nailed it. Exactly. I try to project usage. I don't try to project touchdowns. I will project red zone usage, which should convert into touchdowns, and that's all you can do. But it doesn't always work itself out. But volume finds the way there, right? Kamara 40 burger this week. It's in play every week with him. It's literally in play every week with him. Toxic Biscuit. God, I like biscuits too. Thank you for the Twitch Prime. You guys are just making me hungry. Ryan and Zeke or Dalton MG3 for cash. That's chocolate or vanilla. Like, there's no wrong answer there. I don't think one projects clearly higher than the other. To me, it just comes down to which you are more comfortable with. I'm fine with either side. Eli winning somebody $1 million this week? Could be. Typically speaking, at quarterback, rushing touchdowns define who wins the week. You know, if a quarterback is going to break a slate, the only way for a quarterback to break a slate without running for touchdowns is to have a Jared Goff Thursday night performance where he throws for 450 yards and 5 touchdowns. Otherwise, it's going to be Drew Brees running for a touchdown or 2. It's going to be Matt Ryan throwing for multiples and running for 2 touchdowns. It's going to be Cam Newton. It's going to be Deshaun Watson. It's going to be the guys that can run the ball in once or twice on top of having a really big passing day. You know, so that's typically what does it. And then now you see why I really like the quarterbacks who have the ability to run, even though they're not running quarterbacks, right? I want the floor of the passing game, the floor of the rushing yards, and the upside of the possibility of rushing touchdowns. MG3 has to be the play, being a massive home favorite and his previous usage. I agree. I'm on board with that. You wish DK would make a low ball GPP for NFL. I mean, they did it earlier this year for baseball, I think. Low ball's fun. It's a nice change of pace. You get to flex different muscles. And if you're going to make a low ball lineup with your friends, make sure that you enter it in a GPP. Keenan Allen questionable. Yep. Got a tooth. Listed, what was it, like a knee, a wrist, and a tooth? Some body part and a tooth was what he was listed as questionable with. Dalton seems too cheap. What am I missing? Nothing. He's too cheap. Especially in this matchup. What do we think if Cobb is ruled out? Allison, Graham, and playing cash. I think Graham is already a playing cash if you can afford to get to him. I think he might be too expensive. He might be priced out based on the way that lineup builds are going. And you probably need that extra money at tight end to pay up for the other players who have more volume at other positions. But I think he's a borderline cash game play. I think Allison becomes a cash game play if Cobb is out. Okay, that's funny, Frostbite. Bring low ball back to the edge. So if we had low ball, I'd have to come in third in the 4-man game. Is that what I'd have to do to maintain my streak of coming in second, or would I have to come in second in low ball too? Everyone's talking about Gio. What about Coleman? I like Coleman. There's a lot of running backs that I like. You know, I'd say that there's about 8 running backs that I want to play this week to varying degrees. And then I'll probably sprinkle in 3 more into tournaments. But I think there's about 7 or 8 running backs that are cash game viable based on matchup, volume, you know, previous usage, opponent, defense versus position, whatever else. Listener League already filled on Friday afternoon. Nice sizing. By the way, the video for the Edge is up if you go to the splash page for the Edge. It'd be great if they promoted that, though. I like having my videos seen by people. It's just me. Does game flow worry you at all with MG3? If he doesn't triple in the Buffalo game, do they still rest him? I mean, I don't see this game being as lopsided as that game. Solve a Rubik's Cube? Find the video. They actually posted it this week, which is an upgrade from last week when they didn't post it until later. The video's a mirage. It's an enigma wrapped in a riddle, shrouded in mystery. Favorite games to stack? The high-scoring ones. I know that that's like a smart-ass answer. But, like, this one, New York, and, like, I want the games that I can stack that have high-scoring output and a small funnel of who the plays are going to be made by, right? That to me is like this game right here. Who are the plays going to be made by? The plays are going to be made by Gio Bernard and Tevin Coleman. The plays are going to be made by Tyler Eifert. The plays are going to be made by Tyler Boyd, AJ Green, and if you want, Julio Jones, right? That's how I look at a game stack. Where it's very easy to predict the volume in the game is the easiest way to predict which games are the most stackable. Houston and Indy. You know where, like, there's no 2 tight ends anymore, so he's out. So he's in. At wide receiver, he's in. You could play him. You could play him. At running back, great value in Lamar Miller this week. Deshaun Watson, You have 4,300 now to spend per position. It's not hard to build game stacks. You just got to think about where the volume is going to go. Why did Dave get... What did Moobot do? It's just a timeout. You'll be back. Oh, you guys posted something? Oh, yeah. Go to Discord and find we have a league on DraftKings for members of the 2 Comma Club, the VIP. Go to Discord, get the link to that on DraftKings, and then we have like some $1, just a funsies league, basically, for people to play and just have banter throughout the week. Why wouldn't they try to get... I don't know. You think I might be posting a Gazelle GIF on Sunday? I hope so. I like posting that GIF. It's fun. Saints and Giants is the big game this week. Yep. Or Houston. Yep. Just hit on those. Thoughts on Callaway or Quincy? I like both of them. I think both are cash game viable. I think Quincy is a better cash game play than a tournament play because I'm not seeing massive upside in him. I think that Callaway is cash game viable. And also has the possibility of tournament upside, where I don't know if I see that with Quincy. Quincy's more of a high floor play. A-Rob in cash? Probably not for me, but I see what you're doing. I don't think it's bad. Callaway's still boom and bust. I think he sees 7 or 8 targets, which to me isn't boom bust. If he was a 4-target guy, I would agree with that. But with who's out currently and the quarterback at the helm, he's got a quarterback that's going to take shots and it's going to squeeze it into tight spaces and is going to try to make plays. And a player like Callaway needs a quarterback like that. Just like a player like Will Fuller needs a quarterback like Deshaun Watson over a quarterback like Savage, right? Where Hopkins can do fine with Savage at quarterback because he'll just get 18 targets a game. Watson has a particular set of skills. Callaway has a particular set of skills. And you need the right quarterback to be able to unlock that. And Baker is more that than Tyrod was. Like John Brown. Exactly. I think Callaway gets 7 or 8 targets. Cooper Kupp wasn't a big ceiling play. Cooper Kupp's a big ceiling play every game. Like, Cooper Kupp is the definition of a ceiling play because most of his scoring comes from touchdowns. He's not a 12-target guy. But Cooper Kupp is the guy that sees, top 3, top 4 in the league in terms of red zone looks. I know he scored from outside the red zone last night, but that's why he's a ceiling play. He has big play ability, doesn't get 10 targets, but is on a high-scoring offense that spends many trips to the red zone and dominates his team's red zone looks. So that's why I always feel Kupp is a high ceiling play. He has a lower floor than most. Everyone in the Rams is a ceiling play. Am I buying Tesla stock? I bought a Tesla car. So happy that Aldrick Robinson scored twice on 7 snaps and broke the slate. He did break the slate. And people are out there Barry Horowitzing away, right? Like, oh, yep. Knew I was right about Aldrick. Dude played like no snaps. Just got in there and scored touchdowns. The best tweet of last night, though, was Aldrick Robinson has just passed Laquan Treadwell on the Minnesota Vikings all-time touchdown scoring list. That was my favorite tweet of the night. Would it be dumb if you use Baker in 33% of your GPP Sunday? I'm highly debating. I mean, one, it depends on how many lineups you make. For somebody like me who makes like 150 lineups for the Millie Maker, having 33% of a quarterback is kind of a bridge too far for me. If you're making like 10 and like that means like 3.5 lineups, it's not that big of a deal, right? The more lineups you have, the lower exposure to different quarterbacks you have because quarterbacks have less of a chance to break a slate than a running back, a wide receiver, or a tight end, right? So typically for me, I will be between 5 and 20, or if I really love a quarterback that week, 25% allocation. So if you have less lineups, I don't think 33 is out of line at all. But if you're a max center person, then I think 33 is a bit much. But like if you're making 20 lineups and you have 7 of a quarterback, I don't think you're out of line. Treadwell got bodied by that tweet. It was bad. It was bad. He might have to retire at halftime. Dalton, Geo, Boyd, too many Bengals for cash. No, I don't think so. I think you're okay if you want to do that. I think you can easily avoid it if you want. by coming off Dalton or Boyd. But like, I've said this before, and I'll continue to say it because the question gets asked every single: is this too many guys for cash? And it's usually centered around value guys who are going to get volume. I will never tell you to get off value guys who are getting volume. I don't care if they're on the same team. If they can exceed their salary expectation with the volume that they're getting and not scoring touchdowns, then you should just play them. Because if they do score touchdowns, they absolutely crush their value 5, 6, 7x their salary in terms of points versus salary. So I'm never going to tell you that a player is a bad play because you have somebody else on their offense if it looks like a mispriced situation. Texas defense viable? No, not for me. I pulled the Bart Simpson out. I'm sticking with it. I don't care if Andrew Luck can't throw it more than 15 yards downfield. I'm off Texans D. When I'm building 150 lineups for GPP, is there a certain core size of player pool that you aim for? I mean, everybody's different. I mean, I know what I do. I play a smaller allocation of players than most people, and I center around my core, and I want to have a lot of different iterations with the guys that I like the best. Because the goal of NFL, and people don't get this, especially the people that track players' profitability in tournaments on a week-by-week basis, really do not get the fact that NFL, you're trying to have the nuts for 1 week a year. If you have the nuts just 1 week out of 20, right? I'm counting postseason here. If you have the nuts 1 week out of 20, you win roughly $500,000 to $1.5 million. That's all it takes. You just got to have the nuts once. Okay? I've done this in multiple seasons, right? I did it in 2013, week 16. I essentially had the nuts. I had the second nuts, right? I walked away with like $500K that day. And that was when prize pools were much smaller and action was much smaller. You get more head-to-head, it was less tournament action. Week 2 of 2016, I had the absolute nuts. I walked away with $1.4 million that day, $1.2 million of it on DraftKings. You can make your career by being right 1 week in NFL in any season. So be right that 1 week, and don't be afraid to be right. So the misconception is that people are trying to play every play on the board so that they can eke out a 10% profit a week in tournaments. The money isn't in making 10% in tournaments. That just keeps you afloat. That's what cash games are for. Cash games give me that floor, right? Where I can trickle my bankroll higher and higher and higher throughout the weeks. And every Monday, we go over that on Twitch. I export that to YouTube with the Monday recap and talk about my cash game lineup, the mistakes that I made, all those sorts of things. And go over my win rate. You want to win over 55% of your cash games to be profitable. We've clearly done that so far this season and every other season of NFL. That gives you the floor that you need to be able to take shots in tournaments so that you can try to get that 1 week that makes your entire career. Take chances. Take chances on the plays that you think are the best plays. If you think that the best play is a chalk play and he's going to be 25% owned, why are you not having 50% of that guy? Don't match the field with 25%. Overweight the field, right? If you think that this guy is a great tournament play and he's going to be 2% owned, why don't you have 15 or 20% of that guy, right? I don't want to have 4% of 17 players. I want to have 20% of one guy so that when that guy does well, it pushes everything up. Aldrich from last night being a thing. Like if he scores a couple times, or Cup, right? Cup was not 100% owned last night. But if you made a bunch of tournament lineups for Thursday night, which is, again, a one-game slate and ownership levels are much higher because it's only 6 players from a one-game slate, you want to massively own that guy. You think, you know what, I want to stack the Rams. I want to have a Ram stack in a bunch of my different lineups, and I'll do anything that I can to get there, including playing Aldrick Robinson and hoping that maybe he gets me like 4 catches, right? And he scores 2 touchdowns. You win all the GPPs that night. You win like $300,000-$400,000, and you walk away with a massive amount of cash. Not just for that night, but for the season. Which Detroit GPP do I like the most? Babytron, of course. Memphis Pro answered the question properly. Studfi says, UNC says Tate for him. All about binking once and winning the big money. That's the thing. If you're playing the big tournaments, don't play to cash. Play to win. You know? Will I be sprinkling the Oakland players? No. Maybe. Like, they don't thrill me. Again, I can't play everybody. And I have to take a stand somewhere. And like, if you guys hear me say this a lot, right? If this player goes off, I'm just going to lose, and that's going to be it. Right? And I have to kind of be okay with that. Prefer Ridley or G. Ellison with no Cobb? Assuming that Cobb is out, I'm assuming that this question is in cash if I can fit either. I prefer Ellison. That's a very good question, Nizzles. No, that is the way you should be thinking, right? That to me is a perfect if-then statement for a weekend of NFL. Right? So like, all right, if Cobb is out, how highly do you personally rate this guy? Okay, well, and then who am I going to swap out in case he is inactive? What players am I going to weight down in the daily roto optimizer, and which players am I going to weight up? You know, if Cobb is in, I want 5% of Ellison. If Cobb is out, I want 25% of Ellison. I'm not saying that that's what I want. I'm speaking hypothetically here. But you need to have your if-then statements ready to go so that when those inactives come out, you know exactly what you want to do. You plug everything in, you run your new allocations, and you get on out of there. Man, it's hard to fit Alvin Kamara. I agree. I'm going to do it in GPP. I think he is certainly cash game viable. I like my cash game lineups right now without him. And it's scary, but I think there's enough guys out there that are going to get major volume at 1,000 or 2,000 less. So I don't know that he is a full-on necessity in cash like he was last week. 100 bits just cuz. Thanks for helping us out. No problem, man. Appreciate you. Thank you for the constant support today, D. Dameron. Really appreciate it, man. Is Eckler still a decent play giving the game script for MG3? He's getting play, and I love the kid's story, and I love the kid's talent. You look at Melvin Gordon, hasn't gotten the volume that we've wanted so far, right? And again, Buffalo, he didn't play much in the second half. Against the Rams, just didn't get a ton of looks, right? 17 carries against a really good Rams defense, even though they scored a lot of points. Eckler really only saw 7 touches in that game too, right? This is the game he saw a lot of touches because they were up 1 million points at halftime. This right here. Seven and 10? 7 touches in week 3, 10 touches in week 1. That's kind of who he is. I think that people are falling all over themselves to play a guy who gets 10 touches a week. If he gets into the end zone, does it look like a great play? Of course it does. But he's not getting, he's not Chris Thompson. He's not getting 7-8 targets a game in a game that they're behind. And they don't project to be behind in this game. To me, this is a Melvin Gordon game script. It might also be, they might run it 35 times, which would mean that, Melvin would get 25, and then, Eckler might get 7 or 8, and then some other running back or fullback will get 1 or 2, right? So it's a possibility, but this isn't a week where I think, where I want to go with him. I think that there are certain weeks that you're going to want to do that, but mostly with a team like the Washington, right? Where if you project that they're going to be playing from ahead, play Adrian Peterson. If you project that they're going to be playing from behind, you're going to want to play Thompson, right? Like it's very simple. It's the old, if the Patriots are going to be ahead, play Blunt that week. If you project the Patriots to be behind, play Deion Lewis from a couple years ago, right? It's that simple in those situations. What's my take on Aaron Jones? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I know that Aaron Rodgers was stumping for him the other day at a press conference or at his locker with the press. I still think it's a split situation, and I don't think that there's enough volume for either right now to be viable. Kamara was low owned in cash last week. Yep, it was tough to fit him. Kamara and Ridley or Zeke and Fuller for cash. Give me Zeke and Fuller. Dalton or Ryan, my head hurts thinking about it. Yeah, Dalton's way cheaper, right? Isn't Ryan like 6,100 or am I off my rocker right now? Ryan's 61 and Dalton is 54. 700 goes a long way on this week's slate. Thoughts on Chargers D versus Packers D? Chargers D's in play for sure, but I prefer the Packers for 400 less. When Bosa gets back, I'll probably be slamming the Chargers D. I think the Bears D at 2,600 is way too cheap, though. Thoughts on Dallas Goedert this week? Cheap tight end to fit all the dudes. I think his snap count goes way down with Alshon Jeffrey back. I could be wrong, but that's how I see it playing out. He'll definitely play in 2 tight end situations, but I think they're going to go with Ertz. I think they're going to go with, obviously they're going to go with Ertz. I think they're going to go with Ertz in 1 tight end sets with Alshon Jeffrey and Aguilar on the outside. They've got a Ajayi back there now. Clement might sit out this week. I think that's going to be their core. I think that's the main usage that they're going to run with this week. Maybe they go 2 tight end, 2 wide receiver, with a bigger package, but I think his snap count starts coming down from what we saw the last 2 weeks. Bears, Browns, or Seahawks for GPP defense? Bears, Browns. Carr has been bad. So the Browns have been very aggressive and very fortuitous turning teams over. I think the Bears will be the highest owned of that group for sure. I think the Bears are cash game and tournament viable. Any cash game defense is going to be highly owned in tournaments, but not like 50%, more like 12. I probably don't like the Seahawks. I think you got the right order there. Bears first, then Browns, then Seahawks. Better GPP play, Julio or MG3? Julio's the better GPP play because he's going to be much lower owned. Everybody was on him last week. Everybody's going to, jump off the ship this week. And you want to get him. Okay, a few things happened. One, he was underpriced last week against a better matchup, and everybody was on him. This week, after getting burned, people are not going to go back to Julio because they got burned. Game log watchers are going to watch it and go away because they got burned. And the matchup is not as good. And the price went up. So he's going to be what, like 5, 8, 10% owned? So to me, Julio's the better play because you got to go where nobody else is looking. Zig when your opponents zag in daily fantasy. So if they move away from Julio, you should be filling that vacated space. Bengals Falcons total just hit 54. 54 is big. Get some exposure to that game. That's why everybody likes the Bengals. The Falcons are priced appropriately, right? Coleman's been priced up. Julio's been priced up. Ridley's been priced up. Saw a 50% increase in his price. 35, 50%, somewhere in that range off the top of my head. Gio still too cheap. He went up 400 from last week after seeing 100% of the running back touches. AJ Green still not expensive. Boyd still way too cheap. Dalton 5,400 in a game with a 54 total. That's why everybody likes the Bengals, and rightfully so. Coleman cheaper than Gio, and possibly lower owned. Agree, because it's full PPR, and Coleman will probably see 4 targets, while Gio will probably see 8 to 12, and maybe more. 29 passes caught by the last 2 lead backs that played this Falcons defense. 29. It's a very big number. Do I think Ryan or Dalton for that game? I think they're both fine. I think that I prefer Dalton for cash because he's cheaper. Golladay for cash? No, not for me. His price is adjusted upward, massively. Who are you sacrificing to play Golladay at 6,500? Is my question. Or who could you upgrade by going down 1,000 for somebody with similar volume and touchdown expectancy? Right? Golladay is not the 12 target guy. He's a 7 to 9 target guy, which he's been the last 2 weeks. Right? You can find that guy. And people are looking at the touch. He had 17 and 20 and 21, and he scored 2 touchdowns each of the last 2 weeks. Okay, is he going to score 15 touchdowns this year? I'll take under. And I like the kid. Is Golladay much cheaper on it? Yeah, he's way cheap. He's under 6K there, right? Yeah, it's a different story. Game theory is the only reason to play Coleman over Gio. Stats should point you to Gio. Agree. But, you should be looking for leverage spots in tournaments 100% of the time. Yeah, I agree, Boynton. I totally agree. Jimmy Graham is not that much more than Ebron. He's not that much more. But again, like I said with the quarterback, 700 goes a long way. So does 900 at tight end. If you combine those two, that's 1,500 to upgrade something, right? So if you're stuck in no man's land of position and you've got Graham and you've got Ryan, and you say, okay, well, I can come down to Dalton and I can come down to Ebron or go down to Njoku and really afford this stud that I know is going to do great things, your lineups look way different. Corey Davis's targets are insane. One arm, Mariota has to be better. I would agree. I love Corey Davis in general, and I think that he's a good play this week. But I think there are a lot of good plays. See, here's the issue, right? This is my issue. We're talking about a lot of players up in here. Galladay, Tate, they're in the 6,000 range, right? Robinson, 5,900. I'm fine with those guys if they're the last man into your lineup right now. If you're like, this is my cash game lineup and I have 6,000 left, I'm fine going with Robinson there. But if you look at it in terms of flex, like if you do that and you have a wide receiver spot left, I'm saying, like Coleman's there at 5,900 too. I prefer Coleman to A-Rob. You know, Breida, not really interested in cash. I think he's a tournament flyer in this situation. But like if you have a wide receiver spot left open and you're going to spend that, you come down to 4,600 and get Tyler Boyd. Galladay's had 6 catches and a touchdown each of the last 2 weeks. Tyler Boyd's had 6 catches and a touchdown each of the last 2 weeks in a higher scoring game for 2,000 less DK dollars. You see what I'm getting at? I think Galladay can do it any week. I do. But in terms of building a cash game lineup, you're looking for volume with value. And while he's getting good volume, he's 2,000 more. I can do so many things with 2,000 salary dollars. Can roster an entire defense. Is 5K no man's land for receivers? Definitely not. You mean like 5 to 6K, like that range? Feels like it. I think the highest owned wide receivers are going to be from 4,000 to 4,900 this week. I think that's where you're going to see most people in cash games land. Hyde or Coleman? That's a good question. I think they're very close. Everything analytically points to Coleman. Everything in my instincts, though, is telling me Hyde. So if you want to go with the math, go with Coleman. Right? But like an underdog running back on the road, like that's Hyde. Like those are all things that we run from. But the volume's so good for me with Hyde that I really, really like Hyde. I think Coleman sees 15 to 20 touches. I think Hyde could see 18 to 25. You know? And I'm done trying to predict what the Falcons are going to do around the goal line. I have no clue what they're doing around the goal line. Where the Browns around the goal line, they're going to give the ball to Hyde. I know what they're going to do. I started without you. I've been here all day. Where were you? Boyd or Williams? Definitely Boyd. You have 3 stud running backs, which includes Kamara. Got the regular 4K wide receivers. Your tight end is bad. You consider Christian Kirk at 3,700, go with a better tight end, or go with a sub 3 tight end. I mean, usually you can pay down a little bit at quarterback or at defense to beef up that tight end spot. I don't know the rest of your lineup. I can't build a lineup for you, but like typically speaking, that's where I'll look to pay down at defense because there's more variance in defense than at any other position. Ellison or Gronk? What? I'm so confused right now. Why am I so confused right now? I mean, like, Ellison's going to see a lot more snaps, but, like, you're talking about, like, guys that are priced so differently. I mean, I prefer Gronk. I think Ellison for a sub 3K tight end is not terrible. I don't know how much I want of him. Frostbite says he's sitting at 72% head-to-head wins this year. Is it time to enter higher stakes from where I'm at or increase volume? I would increase volume at the stakes that you can beat. Think about it like rounders. You don't want to end up driving the truck for Knish. If you can beat the 30-60 game, why not just keep beating the hell out of the 30-60 game? Yeah, keep doing what you're doing and just do it more. Going back to Christian Kirk, you've got Dalton and Bears. Okay, so you're basically as cheap as you get. You need 800 to go from Goddard to Ebron. I mean, yeah, I mean, just play a value tight end then. You're fine. There's, I would go with a dude down there. Rounders is legit. Godwin has 6 red zone targets. That's true. He's getting a lot of work inside the 10. He's getting end zone targets. Red zone targets can be misleading because you're around the 19 and they throw you like a quick out to the 12. You don't really have a scoring opportunity, but like inside the 10 and more specifically end zone targets, he's getting targeted a lot in the end zone. Can you only play 50 matchups at each dollar level on DK? I think so. I think that's what it's like. R. Henderson, thank you for the 2 months.
It's really like my 16-month anniversary, but I can't log in to my main Prime account. Here's a toast of chocolate milk to you for all you do.
Here's to you too, man. Thank you. I appreciate the continued support. Same long-term EV IMO, but 50-50s are higher variance. I missed the first end of that. I mean, that would be the other route that I would go. If your win rate is that, going back to the head-to-head question from earlier from Frostbite, you can always extend more by playing single entry, high player volume 50-50s. Like, don't play the 10-mans. I wouldn't even play the 20-mans, but focus on like the 50-man and the 100-man because you get a lot of, lot less concentration of great players in those, so they're more beatable. Even the great players have bad weeks. So you can find yourself being able to exploit the field more in a 50, 100, 200-man 50-50. Even if you can't get more head-to-head action, you might want to put more head-to-head action in 50-50s. Not double-ups. Not double-ups. 50-50s. Is every target that Mahomes throws a red zone target? Yes. And the last time that I said that was the Rams' greatest show on turf. Like, I remember being at the sports bar. We used to go to Tony P's in Marina Del Rey every weekend with all my buddies. And we'd sit there from 9 a.m., which is an hour before kickoff when they open. We'd sit there all day until the games ended at 4:30 in the afternoon. We'd work a full shift at this sports bar. And as soon as the Rams would get the ball, they'd get like the other team would kick the ball off and it would be a touchback. And I'd say, Rams are in the red zone. Al, they're not. They're on their own 20. They're in the red zone, guys. They're going in. And sure as hell, they went in pretty much all the time. Azahir Hakeem from 80 yards out. Told you. Red zone. That's how the Chiefs feel to me this year. Any subtle changes for lineups from no, I play my cash game lineup. I play one cash game lineup and I play it in all of those things. Mayfield, Callaway, and Njoku going to win all the money. Baker's first love is baseball, and he's playing football on a baseball field this week. I like the baseball field narrative. I do like that. I really like how much he seemed to gel with Njoku in the preseason, really targeting him a lot in the red zone and in the end zone. Callaway going to benefit greatly from him being at quarterback as well. Chiefs step off the bus in the red zone. You know what? I like that, and that's a really good way to end the video. Thank you guys for being here. So we're going to go to our red zone, the Red Studio. Thank y'all for being here. I appreciate you watching. I love all the support that you've given me on this channel. It really makes me excited to pump out more content every single day for NFL season. Thank y'all for being here. Please click like, subscribe, click on one of the other videos. Subscribe button's right there. YouTube will suggest a video for you right here. Thank you for being here once again, and good luck this weekend. Bye, guys.